could help my career.
And we are recording now.
I'm so
And
sad right now.
sad?
Yeah, you're going to wreck my career. You have no idea who I am.
I'm not gonna wreck your career. I looked at your. I mean, I know somewhat of who you are. That was
Okay.
No, I don't. I've never gone into a podcast 100% not knowing that.
Well,
That would
that's
be
good.
stupid. That would be stupid. But for people that I have the first time they are on, I do ask them to introduce themselves. So
Okay.
take the floor. Introduce yourself. Episode 233.
Hi, everyone. Tom, thank you for having me on.
Of course.
It's a pleasure. And my name is Gabby Jurgens. I'm the creator and designer behind the Homefront Girl brand, which is a brand that I started a couple of years ago, having lived a life within the military as both a daughter, then a wife, raised my son in this life, a long history within my family of military service. And the purpose was I wanted to see reflected in retail something that I'd never seen growing up, which was the sort of an inspirational quality of what the life of a military family and the kids and what I came to call the other half of the brave,
Okay.
because service is on both sides.
Yeah.
And so as a designer and as a creative, I started building up a portfolio. I now have 6,000 plus designs and images in my portfolio. So Homefront Girl took off. I've licensed to the Yankee Candle Company, Enesco, TF Publishing, Kurt Adler for Christmas ornaments, fabric collections. And most of that, I've been very, one of the things I think that you can take away from if you've had any military, and I know you have military people on, is one of the things that it becomes part of your DNA. I think it's something that happens is that you always want to give back when you can. I'm not a nonprofit, but whenever I've been able to associate the collections with a charity, such as Lone Survivor Foundation, or I've been able to donate to their auctions, or I've been able to give back, as I did with the Yankee Candle collection, I have done that, and that has been a very very enriching thing for me as a designer and having the studio. So that's who I am. I'm the girl behind Homefront Girl.
Well, that was beautiful. I was gonna say, yeah, and Mike Durant, the Black Hawk Down pilot, in his book In the Company of Heroes, he talks about the marriages behind it, and he does a whole chapter on it, and he was like, this is what no one ever hears about, is like it's all the wives at home, and it's all these guys in Delta Force or 160th SOAR, which is basically the spec ops helicopters. He's like, they don't know anything. These guys get a call, their beeper goes off, and they're on an airplane to who knows where. Is it Africa? Is it Canada? Who knows? And they'll be back. Who knows? Maybe I'll be back in a day. Maybe I'll be back in 2 months. And they're all sworn to secrecy, and they can't hear anything. And if they do hear anything from when they're overseas, it's, hey, your husband's been killed. And he's like, they do not get enough attention. And he says you should never marry a guy in special forces. But then he goes, but I think his quote is, the heart is a blind hunter, so that doesn't really matter.
I love that quote.
Yeah,
it is a
isn't it
blind
awesome?
hunter. It's a completely blind hunter.
Yeah,
Yes, and we don't even have to be military to totally get that.
Yeah, I know, right?
But he's right.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right. And I know, I've read his book, and of course I have friends who were in a part of Black Hawk Down, and were part of the team that was there as well. And I think that was, growing up in this life and seeing what I saw, and I'm an inveterate journal keeper. And after my former husband retired, and I moved to the middle of absolute nowhere, where it just snowed and snowed, and it was like, okay, everybody goes off to high school and to a new job, and I'm like, what do I do with the rest of my life?
Yeah.
Okay, how's this going to work?
Yeah.
But I had to do something. So I decided to dip into a lot of the journals that I kept over the years, things that I wanted to remember. And one of the main things was I went to a show in New York, and it was a show that really retails, I'm sorry, not retail. It really caters to the idea of companies that come in looking for artwork and
Okay.
designs and brands that they then, you know, contract to make licensing agreements to say, I'll use your artwork and put it on products. So let's say a flag, or not a flag, a rug, or a throw, or a mug, or whatever it is, or greeting cards, or anything. And when I walked around there for 2 days, I was in New York, and that's really was the start, is when I walked around and I said, why don't I see 24 million demographic reflected here?
Yeah.
Why don't I see this here? And then I went back home and I said, well, I got a couple of winters to kill. Let me teach myself every Adobe program that I could teach myself, because I had gone to a seminar and they said, you got to teach, you know, you got to know this, you got to know that. And of course, I had no idea. I was a pencils and markers
Okay.
and, you know, and watercolor paper. I was like old school. I had no idea. I was like, okay, so I've got to teach myself. And trust me, learning anything new after 30 is difficult for
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, oh my God. So, but I was kind of a computer geek. So it wasn't that difficult. Other than the fact that sometimes, well, Illustrator almost killed me, but I got through it. But there were times, I swear, I would look out the window that was right to the side of my studio desk, and I would look at the winter falling, and it was just like the snow. And I thought, okay, just keep going, keep
Yeah.
going, keep going, just do it.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it, but it was the learning process. And what I tell a lot of military wives and a lot of women in general who are married and, you know, have husbands who have those jobs, and what you said earlier about, you know, Durant saying that, you know, they don't get the attention. Right. They don't get the attention. And I think that was the touchstone from which I launched the collection, is that I wanted that attention. I think it's important for the country. Now, I'm not a nonprofit. Yeah, I wanted to see retail. I want to see stuff in the stores that say, you know, imagine a world without heroes. Freedom is never free.
Yeah.
I wanted emotional products, and I wanted things. And then I went on to, of course, expand. Now I haven't licensed these. I wish I could. Anybody out there listening, please call me. Homefront Girl. I went on and developed Homefront Baby. I developed everything from, you know, bedding to binkies to, you know, I've designed over 80 camos that from a pattern that I created myself, and they're all fun. They're not grandpa's camos. They're
Yeah.
fun. I wanted trend. I wanted something,
Yeah.
you know, that was full of color and life. And then I wanted the messaging to be absolutely on target. And I think having lived this life and having for all my life, I think I probably am one of, as someone who has been in this life for as long, I don't think there's anyone better than someone who's lived this life to be able to say, this is what this life is about, because we know the pitfalls where you don't go.
Yeah.
Because when you live this life, you have a very protective, and you have a very insular environment. All live. We are connected by experiences that we all share, from being the family that does not know where that special ops guy is going to leave and where he's going, and he will not be telling her. And that's why, you know, honestly, that's why the divorce rate is so high within the special ops community.
Yeah.
It's not an easy life, you know. It's not. The guys are great, but the life they chose, and then to tie your life to that, it's very difficult, you know. And so I expanded it to Homefront Baby. Then I did Homefront Pets, because we have four-legged heroes that we love. And then I expanded it to Homefront Kids, because I think it's about time that our children see their life reflected in retail, from backpacks to, you know, picking out folders for school, to pencils, to whatever it is, to being able to say, hey, that's me. I that's who I am.
Yeah.
You know, instead of being the kid that nobody quite understands, because you don't have a parent that shows up at school for your games, or a dad that shows up, or a mom, because they're deployed. There's something very, very unique to the life that military families live. And I think that was the overriding goal, is I wanted to shine a light to really cement the bonds within our military families in life, and also to give peek to the civilian community as to we're more than just the white buses that say goodbye, and we're more than just the welcome home videos that you see on YouTube.
Yeah.
So that was part of it.
Yeah. It's kind of a 180. I was gonna say you've mentioned it twice now. I'm not a nonprofit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
There isn't, but I want to make a profit, honey. I have to live.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Is a lot of people kind of with anything it is that anyone does. It's like, oh, but you're, it's like I love doing this podcast. I absolutely love it, and I also want to make money on it. And if I ever say that to anyone, they're like, oh, so you don't just want to talk to guests, you also want to make money. I'm like, yeah.
Well, of course.
I want to. Dude, I got into medical school out of college in 2013.
Yeah, I've read your bio. You're amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And
story.
But I loved medicine. I loved volunteering at hospitals. I loved shadowing doctors. It was great. I loved it. But if you'd ever bring up to anyone like, yeah, no, I also want to make a killer paycheck, they'd look at you like, like you're Satan. And it'd be like, dude, like as much as I like this, there's a more than romanticism is going to have to carry you through your 97th straight night in the library past 2 a.m. studying molecular biology and organic chemistry. Like you can have all these beautiful ideas about this is what I'm going to do and this is who I'm going to help, but it's more has to carry you through that. And knowing that, okay, you're going to be financially set, that pulls you through when you're exhausted and you're on day 3 of no sleep in finals week. But if you ever bring that up, people are, oh, so you're not nonprofit. So yeah, I just wanted to say that's just, personal. Who cares? Yeah, you make money. I don't think that's how.
But the amazing thing is what you just said is true. What gets you through, okay, so you go off and you go to medical school and you make those amazing sacrifices of nights and expense of everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then you become a doctor. Okay, then you have the ability to go out and you can volunteer for, or do the things that you want to do that you're doing now, which means that you're giving back. I think the whole key to it is that whenever anyone takes the opportunity to say, okay, I want, like, for example, when I did the collection for the Yankee Candle Company and we had a portion of the profits and a limit that we were going to meet to Homes for Our Troops, for triple amputees who get mortgage-free homes. It's a great organization. It's here in New England. And of course, Yankee Candle is a New England company.
Yeah.
So it tied perfectly. And so I did the video. I had never done that. I did the voiceover, the narration of the actual to launch the collection. And out of that, I didn't have to, when I sign a contract, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to, I could take everything just for me,
Yeah.
But, there is that sort of a thing. If you have an opportunity to say, okay, let's tie it to something that we can give back. And then you can do that. It doesn't happen all the time, but if you can, and if you have the opportunity, why not? But at the same time, you are a business, and that is certainly the American way is to move forward and to build a business. And just as, what I think is so interesting, because you're a podcast, you have this podcast, which is great. And I know Mitzi called you the next, what's his name? Rogan?
Joe Rogan. Yeah. Mitzi tells
me.
Yeah,
you're the next Joe Rogan. So yeah, so I'll be doing the same thing. I knew him back when.
Good. Hey, I think it's awesome.
Monetizing a podcast is very difficult.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. I don't know what the key, the secret is to it. I have no idea. But it is not that easy.
No.
And
I'll tell you when I figure it out.
Yeah, will you tell me? Yeah, could you just send it over?
I'll tell you once I figure it out. Yeah, people ask me.
Yeah, it is not an easy thing to do. But the key thing is how many of the podcasts that you do put out there, and the interest of keeping, you've had so many amazing authors, and you've had, so many amazing people who are energetic and excited about doing things and being involved. And I think that's one of those things that finding I've listened before I got into podcasting, before I even did Homefront Girl, the podcast, and really, there's two reasons why I did it. I can be very pragmatic and tell you that the one main reason was, well, not the main reason, but one reason was marketing. I
Absolutely.
thought it was a great opportunity for marketing the brand,
Yeah.
right? And then the second one was, I do love talking to people. They didn't call me Gabby just by accident. I mean, I think my mother knew.
Touche.
Right. She knew this girl's gonna talk her head off.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy it, and I had gotten into voiceover and narration. Another very difficult line of work to get into as well. But I do enjoy. I think the idea of telling a story, being a part and sharing the stories. I've interviewed Helen Patton, whose grandfather was General George Patton, and who's a friend, and she's great. Yeah, no, it was great. That was the last interview that I did, and today I'll be interviewing first-time female filmmaker, Kristen Taylor, which I'm excited to because her documentary film about the Normandy and the D-Day landings is winning awards all over the country as it makes its way through the film festival. And it's such an extraordinary subject, and having been to Normandy and seen what she actually, I learned so much from just watching that. And I thought I knew everything about Normandy, but I learned a lot. But you bring so much of that. And then we did Mitzi Perdue. You had Mitzi, and she talked about, Mitzi's like, oh my gosh, she's so golden, and she's just at her. It's just amazing, and she has no problem telling you her age.
I know.
and I can't, to have that energy. I mean, at that age, and be so is a gift, really. And those are the kinds of things that you're bringing to light, and I'm hoping to bring to light. I got a chance to interview some of the cast members from the movie The Outpost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you got it. Did you see the movie?
I have not.
Oh, Tom, you got to go watch that movie. Okay. All right. You get on Netflix now. Okay. Go watch that movie.
Okay.
So I got to interview the co-president of Millennium Media that puts it out. They're the ones that put out the Gerard Butler Fallen series.
Okay.
Have you seen that?
No, but I'm familiar with the name.
Oh, okay. What do you watch, dear? I mean, exactly do you see?
I am. This comes up a lot on this podcast. I live under a cultural rock, and I have my whole life. It's just I'm weird like that. I think I read Harry Potter in like 2015. Like it's not just anything you're mentioning. There's a good chance that 99% of anything you mention, any movies or shows, I probably have. And it's just I don't know. It's not like a hipster thing. Like I don't avoid it either. If it like comes across my lap, and I'm sick or whatever, and
how have you gotten through COVID? What are you binge watching, and how are you getting through COVID?
I've done a podcast almost every day, and I think I've listened to 104 audiobooks since March.
Oh, okay, so you like audiobooks?
I listen to like historical books, probably 8 to 10 hours a day, just going on in the background. That's how I've gotten through COVID. I decided when it started, I was like, there's two ways I can come out of this. I can come out of this like a wreck, or I'm stuck at home, which means everyone else is stuck at home, which means a lot of people are going to be available for podcasts.
Absolutely. Exactly.
That was my mindset.
That was a good mindset.
Yeah.
But I'll be texting you movies that you have got to add to your binge watching list.
Absolutely, I will. It's just, so it's, people ask me, they're like, what have you? I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't know. I have nothing against it. I don't know. It comes up a lot. Why haven't I seen this, that, or the other thing? I don't know.
The whole country has just been on a binge of watching television.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, you're stuck in the house. That box there is mesmerizing. It's like, okay, what's on TV?
I know. Well, again, that was my logic. Everyone is consuming more content than ever. And I was like, what better segue to here's my podcast? Like, it's when I decided in like March, it seemed like 2020 was just like, write it off. Like the year sucks. I was like, well, if that's the case, I want to have something to show for it. Like if it sucks regardless.
Absolutely. That's how I felt being in the cold tundra where I was.
Exactly. Well, that's what you talked about.
Okay, so I want to have something to show for it.
Exactly, because the time is going to pass and the current situation sucks, so you might as well get something out of it. And that's what my
Absolutely.
logic is. It's like, no matter how bad a day is, if I'm listening to audiobooks, it's like, you know what? The day sucked. I had a bad workout. I didn't meditate well. I'm depressed, anxious, whatever. But you know what? Now I know about this deputy director of the CIA. And is it worth anything? Probably not. But you know what? Now I have a piece of information. But when
Exactly.
when you add those up over all of COVID quarantine, well, now it's manifesting as now I'm just emailing authors whose books I've read and I'm getting them on my podcast. And now it's like, oh, okay. So it's like, make it work for you. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to be texting you a couple people that I think you should probably have on.
Please do.
So,
Absolutely.
authors especially.
Please do.
But no, yeah, absolutely. And, I think that that's a good mindset. I mean, it's funny. Halloween was yesterday. Gosh, I felt so bad for our children, the little kids, it's like, okay, and I saw a meme that came across on Instagram and it said, okay, I've been wearing a mask for about 8 months and I've been eating candy for about 8 months. What's different?
That's brilliant. Yeah. It's what could be scarier than 2020? Yeah. We're all wearing masks and eating shit anyway.
I just like completely, vegetating and but I'm like you. I have to make my time.
Yeah.
It has to count for something. So it's important.
I feel so, like I said, when a day goes by, but I don't have something to show for it the next day, I'm like, well, what the hell am I doing? Right. It's if it's like my end goal is to throw, this is a weird analogy. If my end goal is to throw a paper airplane as far as I can throw it, and each day I can only throw it, whatever, physics, I can only throw it so far, but I'm next to a mountain. Well, if tomorrow I'm at least 3 feet higher on the mountain and I wake up and throw my paper airplane from there, even if my throw isn't any better, there's 3 more feet under me. And if you just, okay, well, is that much? Not really. Okay, but what happens if it's for...
You're making progress.
Yeah. What if it's for quarantine? What if we're going to be in quarantine for 15 days? And now it's 9 months or 8 months or whatever it is. Now it's like, okay, well, what if I'm 1,500 feet higher? And it's not much, but it doesn't bother me as much when I know I'm kind of standing on my shoulders from yesterday a little more, right?
Absolutely.
Tomorrow I'll be sending out emails with, hey, I've done 233 episodes, right? Big difference? No. Bigger than yesterday? No.
That's a lot of episodes.
But if you just keep pitching it as that, was it a big difference in March? Hey, I've done 35 episodes. My name's Tommy Kerrigan. No, but now you kind of blink and the time passes and now it's November and it's, hi, I'm Tommy. I've done 233 episodes. At some point, it starts to, right? The wave gets high enough that it starts to break over and it starts to have an effect. But more importantly, just like you learning Illustrator and looking out at the snow, is God, it keeps you from going insane. That's the important.
Oh my God, it almost made me insane. I'm sorry. The pen tool, I just learning how to do the pen tool.
Illustrator. I hate Illustrator.
Oh, but it's necessary because it's a vector.
I know. And that's why I taught myself Photoshop on Photoshop Mix on that free app on an iPad. And once I started doing Adobe courses on my laptop, I hated Illustrator. You got to know it because it's a vector and it's scalable and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I don't care.
And manufacturers like it. Sometimes they'll ask you, they say, we want an Illustrator file, and you have a contract with them. And then you're like, but I did it in Photoshop. Oh crap.
Yeah,
that's
no,
not good.
It's rasterized. I'm like, it's 8K. You can't even tell anyway. It's just.
Yeah. Well, and it's not even going to be blown up into a billboard, but you still have to fulfill the client's needs. Yeah. And the other thing is, all the programs. I'm Adobe Creative Suite. I've got all the programs. I had to teach myself all of them. I do audio video production for, so it's all a matter of, a tenacity, I think, is sitting there and just saying, I will get through this and I will learn it. And then actually, once I became completely confident in this new set of tools that I had to create with, then it was easy. You
Yeah.
know, then it was just basically the fact that I was creating on a computer with a Wacom tablet,
Hmm.
and I was, I taught myself how to do a podcast. I taught myself how to do an intro. I taught myself how to do all this stuff. And that's why I say to people, it's like, don't ever think that you can't do something. You have to have just the perseverance to say, if this is something I want to do, then you better, just buckle down, chin up, buttercup, and
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you don't, we only have so much time on this earth,
Yeah. Yeah.
make it the best that you can.
Yeah. I sometimes I look at, or a lot of times I don't even, I like to look at it from like an optimistic standpoint. I'm like, I can do anything. Just put my mind to it. But when life really sort of grinds me down, what I do is I start to look at the universe, life, God, whatever you want to call it. I look at it as an individual, like a person, and I look at them like actively screwing me over. And I'm just like, they've been grinding me down. And in their mind, they're like, he's 30. We've been wearing him down for 30 years. He's going to give up, right? In my mind, I'm like, just to spite you, I'm
I'm
going to
going to
keep
keep
going.
going.
Just to
That's right.
keep going. And it's like, it's a terrible mind, right? Because it's sort of coming from this like negative place. But it's what drives me forward, right? Even if you're in last place.
You know what? Whatever makes you
Yeah.
drive forward, then go
Yeah.
with. That's your motivation, and you go with that.
Yeah.
And you're not hurting anyone, but it is the motivation of, if someone tells you you can't,
Yeah.
you're going to say,
Just,
watch me.
I'm going to
That's
keep
right.
going, right? Even if
Yeah,
you're in last
exactly.
place in a marathon and you're not going to
Right.
win gold, just keep crawling just so that friend that said you couldn't do it, who cares?
Yeah.
Crawl across bleeding and tired and just to do it. Like, find that anger. And then once that gets you going, then you can kind of find a positive place, and that's when you pursue it. But you got to kind of use the rage to get through. I mean, it's a rainy day in November. COVID's still going on. The country's seemingly on the edge of collapse. And
God help us. Yes.
God help us. So, well, if it already sucks, might as well have something to show for it. So knock out another episode today.
Exactly.
That's my mindset.
And I'm happy to help you knock one out. So what number am I, by the way? Am I 200 and what?
You're 233.
Okay. I'll take it.
Hey, it's a good one.
Not bad. That's a good one.
Yeah. How did you get in touch with George Patton's granddaughter?
Oh, I met her. It was actually serendipitous, because I actually met her mother and father first, without knowing her. We were living in Boston, and the West Point Society of New England always had this picnic held at the Patton farm.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, of course, her father, who was a retired 2-star general, and the only son of General George Patton, would host the society at his home with his wife and Helen's mother. And I went there, and I remember meeting him. He was tall and booming voice, and he was just it was an extraordinary experience, actually, to be there, because that is where Mrs. Patton spent most of the years during the war, was there at the Patton farm. And then, of course, to walk around and see so much of history reflected all over the place was pretty extraordinary. But then years later, when my former husband became a brigade commander and we went to Stuttgart, Germany, where he took command, he had to go. Well, actually, before he took command, he was actually at Heidelberg at United States Army Europe Command, and he had been delegated to be the representative for USERA at a Holocaust commemoration. Okay. And he was sitting next to this woman with a shock of white hair, young, very attractive, but she had a one of those that my name is, and it said Helen Patton. Yeah. And he's a West Point graduate, and of course, Patton was a West Pointer. And so he just happens to ask her, says, "Excuse me, ma'am, I would be rude, but would you happen to, by any chance, be related to General Patton?" She goes, "Oh yeah, that's my grandfather." And from then on, it just took off, and they became, they talked a lot. And then she came to Stuttgart. I met her. We developed a very, wonderful friendship. And over the years, and, her father had actually served at Stuttgart as the commanding general. And at the time, the commanding general almost held court as the mayor of this
Good shit.
command, you know. And so for her, she came to visit and she got a chance to kind of go down memory lane and see where she had gone to high school there. So she got to see where she used to live. And, you know, a lot of military kids like to do that. You know, it's an opportunity to revisit because you don't really have a house that you can go
Yeah.
back to.
Yeah.
You know, you live everywhere every 2 years.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to go back and say, oh yeah, I remember that. That's changed in this. So Helen and I became friends through that and kept together. And then we stayed for a week in Nahu in Normandy, which is the Patton home.
Okay.
It's now been made into, under the Patton Foundation, it has become a place where it's a lot of military veterans who PTSD or anything along those lines can go to spend some time. Of course, she's always been very, very much involved with our greatest generation and also keeping alive the leadership principles of her grandfather.
Yeah.
So have all the Patton children, her brothers and sisters as well. Benjamin Patton has done amazing things doing We Were There. I believe that's the name, and I could be wrong. Forgive me, Benjamin. But it's basically bringing to different bases the opportunity for our veterans in active duty who have served overseas to take a camera and tell their own story. So you kind of he's taught them filmmaking and they can tell their story. So it's been a very successful program. And Benjamin wrote a book called Growing Up Patton. You know, he didn't go into the military. My son didn't go into the military. He didn't follow his father's footsteps. Now there's many that do. I have lots of friends whose children went ahead and followed into West Point and kept the legacy going. But, you know, I always look at it this way. My son served 18 years in the military as a child, as a military brat. Okay. Yeah. And at the time when it came for him to make that decision, that was his decision to make. He's now a producer in Hollywood.
Oh shit!
And that's the choice he made, and I'm very proud of him. He was at HBO, working marketing for the Game of Thrones franchise and Silicon Valley and Westerworld. I mean, he worked on all of that for 2 years, and then he just decided, I'm going to LA. I'm going to get my master's. So he went to the American Film Institute, and then from that, he went to work for Millennium Media, and then from that, he's now working for a very incredible company that is doing a lot of work in with television. And I could tell you, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. But if I do, I may not have a son who comes home for Christmas. So I won't say anything because I'll be revealing a secret because I'm not allowed to say.
I thought you were alluding to somehow it was dangerous.
No.
I was like,
just
oh
I'm
my
not
God.
supposed to talk about it.
Is
You
he
know, it's a
working with the
Hollywood
mafia?
secret.
Oh, I thought you were alluding that he's working for like the CIA. I was like, don't get him killed.
No.
I was like,
No,
this
it's just
podcast isn't worth
Hollywood.
it. Oh, okay.
It's just Hollywood. I guess you could call it that in some ways.
Okay. That's badass. That's super successful. I thought you were just casually saying, oh, he went into filmmaking. I was like, oh, that's neat. You know, find your own, right?
No,
find your own thing that you love. No, he's going and he's burning it down.
Yeah, he is. And you know, the thing that's amazing is when he started out in his undergrad, he went to Case Western Reserve over in Cleveland. And he did his undergrad there and he started pre-law. You know, we always thought he was going to be a lawyer. Yeah. This kid wrote his first contract to his father, who took $1 from the table early morning. His dad just needed $1. You know, military guys, they just need $1 for coffee. Yeah. I mean, that's basically how it is. But his son watched him at 6 years old. And the next thing we know, he pinned to our bedroom door a contract saying, I saw you took $1 from my bedroom. And unless it's returned by Friday, you owe me 110,000% interest. And I mean, he wrote a contract and he signed it. And so from then on, we said, this kid's going to be a lawyer.
Have you ever seen the movie The Other Guys?
No.
With Will Ferrell? I guess that is one thing I've seen.
I'm going to have to go look it up. I love Will Ferrell.
He's like an accountant in a police department. And he tries to just be like the most vanilla thing ever. But Marky Mark's like, what did you do as a kid? Did you have a normal life? And he was like, when I was 11, I audited my parents. And he's like, he goes, what are you? And that just made me think he wrote his first contract. And it's like, oh my God, he's writing contracts. It's like, 99 Theses and just nailing it to your door. It's
Oh yeah, that's my son nailing it to I still have it actually. I kept it.
badass.
And so I thought he would do that, but then lo and behold, by his sophomore year, he came to me and he says, "Mom, do you think I could change my major to theater?" And of course, the Cleveland Playhouse, of course, is there in Cleveland. It's he did improv for 4 years. He did extraordinarily well. So he did screenwriting. He playwright. All of that. He learned all of that along with other things, and he was offered a summer abroad with the London Academy for the Creative Arts, which I think that's how it is. I know. I think Helen went to that one. He didn't go because of the fact that he did become a theater major, and there was just some issues with that. But also, Second City came calling from Chicago, and they wanted him for a semester. And we went all the way to Chicago, and we were looking for an apartment for him, and we thought this was going to happen. But it was a brand new program, and they hadn't quite gotten the grading quite right and enough to cases standards, so he couldn't do it. So, but it was really cool to go to Second City, Chicago, and see the original, back in the day, cast, of the originals, and that was kind of cool to see. And, but it was, but he went from there to, his graduation gift was, I said, if you can get into this, you're going to USC film. I mean, if you want film, you're going to give your right arm to go to USC film.
Yeah.
And he went there, and he did sitcom writing. He got into this for the summer. And what I wanted more than anything is I wanted him to see the other side, because he was always into film. He was a big George Lucas, Star Wars. I mean, that was it. But it turned out that he wanted to go to New York, and it turned out the best of what it needed to be. He got into 30 Rock. He got into that within 8 months of being in New York. Jeez. And working for Oxygen Network. And then after that, they did away with that department. So then he freelanced for HBO, and then they hired him full time. And then he did that. So, and now he's in Hollywood, and he's following his dream and doing what he wants to do. And I'm so proud of him.
So he is absolutely kicking ass at this.
He is kicking ass, and I'm very proud of him.
I'm proud of him. I don't even know him, and I'm proud of him.
I know, you'd like him. He's really cool.
Well, I don't know.
And actually, you're exactly his age.
Really? I was going to ask.
Yeah, calling me mother.
Yeah. I was going to say, can you get him on the podcast? But I realized, I don't know. Is that going to get him fired? Is that?
Probably, but I'll ask him.
Yeah, it's a 95% rejection rate, so that's why I'm so.
Oh no, that's terrible. We got to work on that.
It is. I have found that is like a physical law. Like
really?
Oh yeah. I mean, just like it's almost like a physics equation. It's like PV equals nRT, or it's like 95. Shoot out 100 emails. 95 won't respond to you. 5 will. One of those 5 will say sure. That's what I've found. And so but I've just taken it as like, I've stopped complaining about it and been like, all right, whatever. That's just what it is.
But you know what? Look at it this way though, Tom, is that you're shooting it out there. And if you didn't do that, then you wouldn't have any time.
Exactly.
It really is the fact that you have, I mean, look, Rogan had this, he came from something. Okay. So it wasn't easy from the beginning for him to. Yeah. So it's like actually my son will tell you in New York, there's a million actresses that want to be Broadway stars. Okay. There's a bazillion of them, and they come to New York. And out of all of that, you're going to run into the disappointment of the fact that, I'm sorry, every major high school star of every town high school in the country showed up in New York and thought that they had the chops for, making it. And, but you got to do it. You got to put it out there, and you got to, or you're not going to get a result, or you're not going to get something. You're just going to sit and wallow in misery. And I don't think you are a wallower. I'm not a wallower. You got to move forward.
Yeah. I found it's not even necessarily like you have to beat out other people so much as you just, it's like if there's like a bunch of people holding onto a pull-up bar. It's not even that you have to do the most pull-ups. You just have to hold on the longest, and eventually people start letting go. And it's almost like it's that kind of process. Like you don't even have to hit it out of the park. you just kind of have to keep going and going and going.
That sounds like
And
a Survivor show, actually.
it
I think they
does.
did that, where you like hold
Probably.
on to the bar and let's see who drops first.
Probably. But that's what I found is like, it's not even like that you have to outdo everyone else so much as you just have to like, just not give up. Just hold. And it sounds so cheesy and cliche, but it's like, if you just hang on long enough, all this, at some point, it's not that you succeeded. It's just kind of that everyone else failed. And then you're like, oh shit, I'm here. Right.
Yeah.
At least that's what I found. I don't know how
And that's what
accurate
you
that is.
want, is that you
Yeah.
got there.
Just yeah.
If I had sat down all those years ago and I had said, forget it, I'm going to go and get a bottle of wine and sit down and watch the Housewives of New York City.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to sit down and that'll be what I do. And I'll just
Yeah.
be the country club wife,
Yeah.
like the rest.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. I said, I have to do something and I've got to figure out what my next, and it became Homefront Girl. And
Yeah.
it became this brand that I'm still pushing and I'm still working very, very hard, especially during COVID, to get back where it was before. And it's
Yeah.
not easy, but I'm not giving up.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it, is you have to make that decision that, you're not going to give up.
Yeah.
And remember why you got started whenever anything happens.
Yes. Or just look again, anthropomorphize of the universe. Just look at it as someone that's telling you can't do it. Just be like,
Yeah,
screw you.
that'll motivate you.
It will. It's another
But not
thing.
everybody's like that, though, Tom.
No.
Not everybody
Yeah.
will have someone say, you can't do it. They'll say, oh, you're right. And then off they go to be miserable. But there's the other ones that say, watch me.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't, those who say it's impossible should get out of the way of those who are doing it. Right.
Exactly.
That quote. It's one thing that I started this podcast on December 12th. And my mindset was, because for years I was trying to do graphic design and I couldn't turn it into money. And when the only things I could do for money were things I didn't like. So the whole reason I decided not to go to medical school is because I wasn't happy. And my uncle, who was a doctor, told me, if you're smart enough to be a doctor, you're smart enough to make money doing something that you like. Or he said, you're smart enough to make more money doing less work. And so when I got to graphic design, I didn't like what I was doing. I was like, well, now I'm back at square one. So I'm not just going to settle. And I kept trying to get it, in quotations, the thing, whatever, the golden goodie, the pot at the end of the rainbow. I kept trying to get it within like a day. And I kept going for like instant gratification, completely ignoring like the recent memory that it took 4 years to get into medical school. And finally, this like last December, it just kind of dawned on me. I was like, I keep almost blinking and it's like December again, 2016, 2017, 2018. And each time I look back and I'm like, man, the time has passed. If I had just done something little each day, I'd be so much farther than I was a year ago. So finally last December, I was like, what if I just do a little bit each day? And the point of me saying all this is like what I've found works is, whereas some people, maybe it doesn't work to say, you can't do it. Yeah. Like you said, maybe they just go, yeah, you're right. So like I took a different approach, and it was, I still have it. I updated it this morning. I have an Excel spreadsheet, and in the columns I wrote number of episodes, number of subscribers, number of total views. And I just update. And the first day it was 111. And I just kept updating it every day. And it went depressingly slow. Like absolutely miserably slow. But I would always kind of just blink and, oh my God, it's been 2 months. Oh my God, it's been 5 months. I just kept adding and adding and adding. And now it's where it is now. And I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, like it's worked. So point of that whole rant was, I found just keeping records. I was going to ask, do you do that? Is there any metric you do with Homefront Girl? Because that's what's kept me sane, is like almost making it a video game and just every day.
I think that's a great thing that you're doing. As far as with Homefront Girl, if I were to keep a record, it would be the contracts that I have. Every time I sign a contract, that would be really the best metric, because but it the difficulty is for for me is that I started with something that no one else had actually ever looked at. I started with a market that no one had ever looked at.
Yeah.
And I'm still in many ways dealing with that. Dealing with that sort of a prejudice against the fact that it might be a niche market, but it isn't. 24 million is not a niche market. I don't know what consumer wants or what retailer wants to pass up on a consumer market that large.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I extended it to first responders because I feel that, when I came up with Homefront Girl, the log line was, she's a wife, she's a mom, she's a sister, she's anyone that's ever shared their hero with the world. And when I say she, I was called Homefront Girl. So, that kind of just means that, but it by no means excludes the service of male spouses as well. And, so as far as any kind of metric that I look at, it would probably be the fact that I have a very strong following within, on Instagram and, Facebook, and that's all well and good, but it is always a constant battle. It really is to get manufacturers to see this as much more than just a niche market and to get them to see something, because I'm the only one doing it. No one had ever thought to even do anything like this, which can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing because there aren't any numbers at the beginning to say, okay, this is good. All right, let's get on this bandwagon.
Yeah.
And now we're dealing with the idea of COVID. Manufacturing, most of it is done over in China or in Taiwan or overseas. And, that just drew to a complete halt, for so many manufacturers. And so they stuck with what they had already in stock, and very few were willing to, open contracts and start new contracts. So that was difficult. And it has been difficult. So, 2020 sucks. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever told you that, but it really does.
It does. It absolutely does. But which reinforces my belief that might as well have something to show for it.
Right, exactly. And when they took Sean Connery the other day, it sucked even bigger. I couldn't believe I'm glad he passed away in his sleep and he was restful and at peace and everything, but my goodness.
What?
Oh, you don't know Sean Connery died?
No, I didn't.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Tom, you really do
2020.
Wake up.
2020 sucks. You know what? I
Sucks.
take it back.
I know.
There's no
Sean
redeeming
Connery,
qualities.
The best Bond ever. Died 2 days ago. 90.
Connery died.
Can you believe Sean Connery? I mean, he thought he was going to be forever, but I mean, Sean Connery, the ultimate Bond.
Well, he's in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I watched that in June.
Extraordinary, right? I mean, amazing. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And a great Scott. Oh my goodness. I mean, he was a man's man. And, from the beginning, he was the best Bond ever.
Yeah. And he.
And he's dead, honey. God rest his soul. And you didn't know.
I didn't know. You know what? Maybe there is no redeeming qualities of 2020. Maybe I was a little too optimistic.
Yeah, that's what everyone said. You suck, 2020. Everybody was posting that.
Oh my God.
You took Sean Connery.
I thought you misnamed someone. Maybe
kidding?
she means someone else, some other Sean.
Oh, the ultimate Bond. Yes.
I can't believe that.
I'm sorry I know. I felt the same way. Trust me. Oh. Do you remember the Highlander?
Yes.
Highlander?
I
think he was an Highlander. I mean, I can't remember, but I always think there can only be one.
Yeah.
There can only be one. And there was only one. It was Sean Connery.
Yeah. Mr. Ball. Yeah. God damn it. That is depressing.
I'm so sorry, but everybody's depressed.
Yeah, I know. But
yeah. So look at this. I mean, we're in November. Can you believe it? I mean, we're nearing the end of this year.
And we can just, when this year's over, we can just wrap this bitch up and just put it behind us. And there is an upside. There is an undeniable upside. And it's
what was that?
Things we have taken for granted. I mean, really.
Oh, this is true. This is very true.
Going to the bar, going to sporting events, going to the beach.
Yes.
None of which are things I do.
Going to a Broadway play.
Yeah. I mean, none of these are things I do. I stay inside anyway. But for everyone else, that's the things they like, is how great is it going to be to just have this shit back that we completely took for granted. Like, it's
Well, let's
gonna
hope
be
that we do have it back.
we will. We will. I refuse to believe that goes on for. I think people will just start saying, "Screw this! I'm going out. If this is how I die, this is how I die." I think that
Jeez,
will
that'll help. That'll help with the non-spreading of the super spreaders. I
Oh!
don't know.
I'm not
This
saying it
is,
will be good. I'm just saying I
yeah.
think it will happen. I'm not defending or going against it. I think eventually you're gonna have people be like,
Well, they're
"Well,
saying into 2021 this summer. I mean, Broadway's supposed to be coming back June of 2021. That's what I've heard so far. And,
yeah,
but you think about it, how many of those people have been put out of work?
yeah,
You
yeah,"
know,
and
I,
can't
I
come
just,
back.
people, when you start to think about the people who are in those kinds of, from rock concerts to people who put the concerts together,
Hmm.
like the scaffolding and the
Hmm.
lighting. I know one who owns a business who that's all he does for over 30 years,
Yeah,
major concerts. And yeah, it hurts business.
yeah,
It's crappy.
absolutely.
And then we've got Broadway actors, the greps, people, behind the scenes, they don't have a job.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's been extraordinary. I mean, 2020 means seeing if you have
perfect.
perfect
Yeah,
vision or,
yeah, yeah,
2020 is hindsight, as the saying goes, but nobody saw this coming
yeah,
when we
yeah,
greeted 2020.
yeah. It's, but who knows? Maybe this is where, if we rebuilt after World War II or the Civil War, if we got through the Cold War, if we survived 9/11, I just don't see this being the nail in the coffin. I
I
think
agree
it's
with you.
definitely bad, but the idea that this is kind of like, you can't do that. All right, maybe you're right. I can't. That's how I look at it. This is the universe being like, all right, it wasn't World War II. It wasn't the Civil War. It wasn't 9/11. Here's COVID. I mean, am I really going to give the universe that gratification? He knocked me out
No,
of
not
the
at all.
pandemic. No, screw you. I'm going to come back, and me speaking as the human race, I'm going to build the best goddamn thing ever, and we're going to laugh in the face of COVID. That's my mind, because I don't, sure, optimistic, romantic, idyllic, all those, but I don't see, it's what Elon Musk said. I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than be pessimistic and right. Because
Exactly.
there's nothing
What do you
really,
get from
yeah.
pessimism? What do you get
Ha,
from a
yeah,
negative attitude? You don't get
right,
anything from it,
right.
but more of
Yeah,
the negative.
right. It's like, I told you that my house burned down. It's like, why are you happy about that? Like, it's, so I'd rather
That
be,
you were right that it was going to burn down.
yeah, like,
That makes you
okay,
happy.
cool. Yeah, it's like, cool. Yeah. I told you that girl was going to reject me from going out on a date. It's like, why are you cheering that? So the way
Yeah,
I look at it is like, this is just but a stepping stone to something greater. And if it's
let's
not,
hope.
yeah, if it's not, then I would much rather be wrong about it being a stepping stone as opposed to being, nope, it's over, humanity's over, the rest of the world canceled.
Yeah.
What it was, but to kind of completely jump back, I saw on your website, there's a petition to the Department of Defense.
Hmm.
Can you go into that? Because, yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
Um, well, there's something within the military that's called the 2020 rule. And I don't know, that's not the official name, but that's what most of the military families know it as. And it means that if you are married, you have to be married 20 years of the service member's active duty time. You have to be married with it. You could be married 50 years. But if you only have 18 years of his active duty years that you were married, then you will lose, in the event of a divorce, you will lose all of your benefits because you're missing 2 years. If you are married for 19 years and 364 days, you will lose it because of one day. And that I discovered as I was fighting cancer at Johns Hopkins, because I, at the same time, was dealing with the fact that my marriage was completely falling apart. And then I got cancer from the stress, because stress will give you cancer. And so what I decided, and I think this is just in my nature, is I think if you have what I felt in discovering that after living my life for my entire life within the military structure and having served as a military spouse, because our children and our military spouses and families serve as well. Sorry, but that's the truth.
Hmm.
And was that this is an unfair law. And I went with a friend. I left chemo that day, and I had made an appointment to see my senator, Rhode Island, Senator Reed. And I told him what I wanted to speak to them about. So I got an hour with him, and I went in, and I sat in front of him, and I said, this is an absolutely unfair situation that you're placing those who have been those combat multipliers that you love to call on and say that they've done all that they've done. But yet, in the event of a divorce, you have a law in place that will leave them at a loss for the benefits that they have so richly earned. And when you are a military spouse, unless you're one of the rare cases, you don't build up a 401k. You don't build up a career. It's not the kind of life that makes it easy for that. And I will say that the spouses of today have been able and are very motivated to become entrepreneurs within the structure of the life that they lead as military spouses. And I think that's an extraordinary thing, and I applaud them for it. But at the same time, the law, the way it sits, will still keep you away from your benefits. And then when I told them, I said, look, the war has come home. You have 5 million military caregivers that are taking care of our PTSD and TBI and those that are even further wounds. And they go to therapy. They have to deal with this somehow because they're dealing with night terrors. They're dealing with a person that they sent off that came back a completely different person, and they have children. So now what you're telling me is that if that person decides that, you know what, I don't want to be married anymore, and that woman has absolutely no recourse and will lose her benefits, the use of the commissary, the use of going on a base, the use of being able to get her therapist and have health insurance. That was the big deal. The health insurance was the big deal.
Yeah.
That cannot be what the military intends when they, we have a warrior ethos, which is leave no one behind, but you're leaving an entire cadre of military supporters and families, and that's unfair. So I started the petition. I am still, COVID has interrupted everything, but I was working with a couple of people, senators, and who sit on the Senate Armed Services Committee. And my determination is that it's too late for me. I can't help. It can't help me any longer. I was missing a year, and because of a year, I lost everything. And I had cancer, so I would require health insurance. And anyway, so long story short is that I will continue to work with these congressmen and senators and try to move this forward, because even if it doesn't, I can't benefit from it. I never want another woman to walk the halls of a hospital or anywhere and wonder, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Because it's out of her hands. And the military that I know and love, and this is anathema to what they really should be doing, and this is wrong. So that is what the petition is about, and that is what, as a military, advocate, and I guess you could call me that, it is to make a difference. So I've been on, Brian Kilmeade show, and I talked about the 2020 rule. I've talked about it on several different shows to get the exposure. Nothing, last year was a lot. I did quite a bit, but then, this year is a completely different year all around. But I continue to push the petition. It's important. It's important to stand up.
Yeah.
If you have a voice, stand up, even if you can't benefit from it.
What did you mean when you said it can no longer help you? Is that
it can't be grandfathered. I'm divorced, so I can't be grandfathered into it.
okay?
If I had been separated and legally separated, I would continue to keep my benefits, and then if it became law, then I would benefit from it. But that wasn't going to happen. Unfortunately,
I'm a moron. What is the difference between divorce and legal separation?
Well, you're not a moron, but divorce is like final.
Okay.
And legal separation is sort of like you've made an agreement that you're not living together, you're separated, But under the auspices of a military benefit like this, I would still be granted the military benefits, including health care. And unfortunately, that wasn't something that he would agree to. So I lost it all.
Okay. And if feel free not to answer, what was your experience with cancer? I mean, I know this is a stupid question.
Oh, no,
Oh, it was, yeah,
absolutely.
no, it was a great experience, Tommy. Yeah, no, but
My experience with cancer was after the sudden ending, a suddenly unexpected and totally surprising ending to my marriage. I went into really, it was a PTSD, a total trauma. I lost extraordinary. And, when that happens, I like to explain,
yeah,
and what I learned from my own oncologist is the fact that cortisol, which is one of the
yeah,
things that happens from stress,
yeah,
goes coursing through your body. And you're a medical student, so you know what I'm talking about. And it was an extraordinary, impactful thing that I hadn't expected. I was at the end of my divorce, I was 28 years married, 26 at the time that it happened. And within 4.5 months, I had just passed a mammo, so it was breast cancer. And so I was healthy. I was, thankfully, disgustingly healthy for most of my life.
yeah,
And, but it took something like that, something that was so traumatic, so incredibly unexpected, to take me to stage 3 very quickly. So within, my husband was left. I was left on an island, and I have absolutely no idea what just happened. And within 4.5 months, I was listening to my doctor tell me that I had stage 3. So I had to get to Johns Hopkins to fight it. So I did. No idea how it was going to happen, but I did get through it. I went into remission, and I did come out of remission last year. So I've been fighting it. No, actually, that's not a good thing. People
right.
always say that when I do that.
Yeah.
So I was in remission, which was a good thing. When you're in
Oh,
remission,
it
that
came
means that
out
you
of
put it
remission.
down.
Oh,
I came out of remission, so that means that it came back. So I had to fight it again, and things are going good. So I'm very grateful for that. I mean, it's not easy, of course.
yeah,
I'm fighting it again,
yeah,
but you know what? There's a lot of other people that have a lot of worse situations than me. So I have to give thanks for incredible support system that I have. And also, I think the best thing, and I think you would agree, is that in any situation, look, approach it with positive qualities. If you approach it with just like we've talked about, the negative aspect, what are you going to get? It certainly isn't going to help in any way. I mean, I could curl up in a corner and just be in a fetal position and say, okay, I'm done. This is
yeah,
good.
yeah,
God needs to go find some other badass,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
done.
yeah. Go find another hero. It's not me.
Yeah. But no, you have to, I think a positive attitude and gratitude every day is important. So I think that's key.
Yeah.
So I'm doing good, doing good. And I had some really good news not too long, actually last week, and very, very happy about that, and happy that I could call my son and tell him the news, and he was hooping and hollering over in Hollywood. And so that's good. So you
Uh,
gotta say, I'm not giving up yet.
yeah. It's. I think it's from the Bhagavad Gita, and it's
I
Vishnu.
love the
Yeah,
Bhagavad Gita.
yeah.
Good for you. Yes.
Yeah, I've read that. I read that by accident in in college. I was taking a class on like religions of the world, and I did the wrong assignment, and I ended up reading like most of the Bhagavad Gita over like a weekend, and started it and was like, this is, because that's like right when I started meditation, and I was reading it, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, this guy's meditated. I was like, when was this written? And then I was like, oh, holy shit, this is really old. But in it, isn't it? It's like he's whoever, he's going into battle, and he's like, I don't want to fight anymore, and he's like, I'm just gonna drop my shield and sword and like go kind of sulk off into the woods, and like Vishnu comes on, or whoever it is, and I'm getting all the names butchered, but he's like, no, he's like, go, he's like, rise to the fight. He was like, this is why you're here in this reality. And it's, my interpretation of it is like, when we die, like and I do believe that there is just, I don't think anyone cannot go to heaven. It's, again, maybe I'm too optimistic. I think everyone goes back into some ultimate oneness and bliss with all love and perfectness. And whether or not you like live an awesome life or not, I think we all go back into that. That's just my opinion. But it's like, and seeing is how, it's almost like walking across like a high rope, tightrope with a bunch of cushions underneath. It's like, no matter what, if you fall, you land on cushions and you can go up again. If you make it across, cool, you can high five and then you can jump into the cushions. No matter what, you get to go to the cushions. So I might as well try to walk, because why not? That's kind of from the Bhagavad Gita, is like, rise to the fight. Like, you're not here to go sulk off into the woods. You're here to rise to the fight and be a warrior. And then maybe you die, in which case give it your best effort. But that's kind of how I look at it, is like, there's, no matter what you get, eventually, I don't look at death as a bad thing. Maybe that's because I lost a sibling to suicide and at 6 years ago. But I look at it as like, and this sounds bad, it sounds depressing, but I don't think it is. I look at it as, I get to die one day. I get to lay down and rest. And so, seeing as how I get to lay down and rest, it's like finals week in college. Like, no matter what, at the end of the week, I'm going to get hammered drunk and I'm going to pass out and I'm just going to relax. I'm going to relax for a month. I'm going to put on 10 pounds of holiday food.
Hey, that's that you need to write a new Bhagavad Gita.
That's what my logic was, is no matter what, I get to sleep. So I might as well come out of this with an A in all of my classes instead of collapsing right before, the end of the semester and end up getting C's. So that's kind of how I view life, is like, you get to rest at the end. So like, go be a champion, go out swinging. And then, no, I don't mean that in some romantic, like, you're going to be the best. No, like, go face the triple-headed mile-tall monster of life. And if you die, you die.
Well, and I think, and also too, is like, don't be afraid of risk. I think no one, there's nothing worse than having regrets and saying, gosh, I wish I would have done that, or I wish I would have really had the, to follow through on something. And I think that comes back to the fact that we're only here for so long in this life, and take advantage and make the most of that. And I don't. Okay, so you quoted Bhagavad Gita. I'm gonna say Rocky. If you remember the scene where he's talking to his kid and he says, "You know what? Life is gonna knock you down. It is brutal.
Yeah.
It is not fun. You're not gonna." I'm totally paraphrasing here.
Yeah. No.
But
I know the quote. Yeah.
You know the quote. It's very powerful when he says, "But it's not about how many times you get knocked down. It's about how many times you get up."
Yeah.
And that really is, in a nutshell, that is life.
Yeah.
It's about how many times you get up, and you don't blame others.
Yeah, that's the
don't blame others for what you could, and don't envy others for what they have that you don't have. Well, how about saying, I'm going to own that one day, instead of saying, who the heck does he think he is having that? I didn't grow up in that kind of a world. I mean, I wasn't raised in that kind of a world. My parents were like more about, you could do, believe in what you want to do, and aspire to more than just, I certainly wasn't aspired to be envious for the rest of your life. It's aspired to be who your full potential is. And I hope I gave that to my son. I used to tell him often, since he was little, and even to this day, he goes, I know, Mom, and today lies tomorrow. I used to tell him that all day. What you do today, think about where you want to be in 5 years, because you got to do it today. Start today to get to where you want to be in 5 years. Because if you don't, 5 years happens in a blink of an eye. And then where are you?
I was going to say, I used to listen to that Rocky quote all the time, and it's, life is a mean, nasty world, and it's going to beat you down better than anyone else. And it's not about how hard you can hit or how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep going forward. And if you know what you're worth, go out and get it. And don't make up excuses. Don't say, I don't have this because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you.
I love that. That's exactly right. You did a great job. That's exactly right. Cowards do that.
Cowards do that, and that ain't you. Now, if you know what you're worth, go out and get what you're worth.
I love Stallone.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, and then I know I said I'll only keep you for an hour. We're at an hour 10 right now. Is I remember there was a Rogan quote, because I started listening to Joe Rogan in college, like right when the podcast started. And he actually like laid the seeds in my mind of that, like I wasn't happy. Little did I know, like 10 years later, I'd be doing my own podcast. But it was, one of his quotes was like, don't be envious. If you're digging ditches or shoveling manure and you're sweating and you're out in the summer sun and you just look like shit and you feel like shit, and then someone drives by in a convertible with a hot girlfriend, don't get angry at that guy because you stink. Look at that guy and go, oh, it is possible to not stink. He's like, don't try to take away, be like, oh, he did it. That means that where I am right now isn't the only reality. That means there are other things possible. So don't
Right.
look as that. Be like, look at it as like, it's like one of the dangerous things about the atomic bomb was that once we did it, every other nation now knew it was physically possible, and that's where the real danger lied. You can kind of flip that and be like, if you can look at Joe Rogan penning $100 million contract, or Tom Brady coming in and winning a Super Bowl and then appearing at 9 more, don't look at it as like, oh, he did it. Who's that guy? Be like, oh, holy shit, he did it. Okay, well, it can be done. It can be done.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
yeah.
And that is the way I think everyone should be, because I think take inspiration from those people, and rather than take a sense of despair that it's, someone else is much more, luckier than you, has it better than you. I mean, if you do that, what exactly will you be left with other than an empty, just an
Yeah.
empty feeling?
Yeah.
Carpe diem,
Yeah.
seize the day. Okay,
Yeah.
well, seize the day.
Yeah.
Go do some epic shit and get
Yeah.
out there and do what you need to do,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to be who you are, fulfill your potential, and whatever that potential that you feel is there, not what someone else tells you you
Yeah.
need to be. I think you need to have a sense of real understanding, and it only comes with, as you said, uh, getting to know yourself, getting to understand and accept yourself, and I think that is one of the best things that we can do. I mean, our men and women who serve in the military have one of the most extraordinary jobs, because they have to salute the flag and go where they're sent.
Yeah.
And it's an all volunteer force. And thank
Yeah.
God for that we have an
Yeah.
all volunteer force. But they do it, and they salute, and they go where we send them. And that takes courage, and that takes extraordinary sense of, commitment that they've made. And if they can commit, for whatever reason led them to being in the military, society, whatever it is that brought them into that all volunteer force, think about the opportunities that we have that don't limit us to have to be sent overseas to do all that. So you have when you break it down to the parts of, okay, why can't I do what I want to do? Break it down. Okay, what's keeping me from doing it? Well, most of the time you're going to find that the only person keeping you from doing what you need to do is you,
Yeah.
So that's about it.
Yeah. It's like that quote, it's the only thing keeping you where you are from being at your dream is the bullshit story you keep telling yourself.
That's right.
It's
That's a
all
very good one. Yeah, it's a good code. That's a great mantra.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, we'll wrap it up with this. Is well, I had 2 more things. First is, you said about regrets. Yeah, one of the quotes I saw at the beginning of my last semester of college that really kind of sealed the deal of sowing the seed of realizing I didn't want to go to medical school was a quote I saw by the author Maya Angelou, and it's there is no greater pain than bearing an untold story.
Oh, I love that quote. And I love
know.
Maya. So yeah.
That burned through my head. Like, I could no longer, I knew I didn't want to be a doctor for a while, but at that point with that, it became like a splinter in my head. I was like, I can't, everywhere I look, it's just, I just like almost hear it. It's like, there's no greater pain than bearing an untold story. And the second thing is I really hope that you change the name of your podcast to The Gift of Gab.
Oh, The Gift of Gab. Wow, that is interesting. Alliteration going on there.
I know.
But Yeah. Now, is that because you're trying to give me a compliment here, Tom? Are you trying to tell me that I have the gift of gab?
You do. It's so, dude. Some guests, it's like pulling teeth, and
Oh,
which is fine because no guests asked to come on. I asked them to come on. So if guests come, I don't hold any guest in like low regard. They gave me their time, but some
yeah.
of them make it very easy because they talk too, and I
Yeah,
can sit
absolutely.
back and listen. You're one of the few that talks, and I'm actually like, oh, okay, they got this. Like they can. This is interesting. Like I can sit back and listen. I don't have to guide this. It's a good thing. It's a good
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. Well, it's good. It's good synergy, right? I
Yeah.
mean, when you get that kind of thing, it's really great.
Yeah.
So, but Tom, it's been awesome. And you're amazing. The next Rogan, I will remember. I will. Oh, come on. You know you are.
Oh,
So, but anyway, it's been fun. Thanks for having me on.
thank you for coming on. I never understand why people thank me for being on. Thank you for
I
coming.
guess it's been awesome. It's been awesome to be on with you. So, hey, ask me back again.
Please do. I will absolutely do. I'll email you after this. And Gabby
Okay, that's
Bergen,
awesome. But you're
Homefront Girl.
great.
I will link
Homefront
it. I will link all your
girl.
stuff, your website, your podcast. It'll be in the description and in the top comment. I'm not exactly sure how many people will get it going because I have a small audience. I always
I
tell
don't
people
care.
I'll link your stuff.
Hey, you know what? It's a growing audience, and that's the best part,
Woo!
you know?
God willing.
And anyway, but yeah, and then I'm going to be emailing you back as well because remember what I talked to you about earlier?
Yes.
So I'll be sending you some stuff.
Yeah,
Okay?
please do. Thank you so much for coming on. Your story
Oh,
is
absolutely,
inspiring.
Tom.
It was wonderful.
Hey, keep that chin up.
I will.
Okay?
In 2020, damn you for taking Sean Connery.
Sean Connery, too. I know. So sorry. I
Damn you.
know. You just.
That is,
Anyway, take care, sweet. And it's great talking to you, honey.
thank you so much. And I can't wait till
All
next
right.
time.
Ciao.
All right. Bye-bye.